Shalom. This is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. We are continuing our brief outline of biblical proofs concerning the lost 10 tribes. We have proven that the lost 10 tribes now are to be found amongst Western nations. And we have proof of this. We have proof of this from the Bible. We have proof of this from all different sources, from history, from rabbinical texts, from linguistics, mythology, contemporary affairs, from national characteristics, from a lot of different fields that all together point in the same direction, that the lost 10 tribes now, descendants of the lost 10 tribes, are now to be found amongst Western nations, and especially amongst the Anglo-Saxon or English-speaking peoples, because they are the tribes of Joseph, or that is where the tribes of Joseph were predominant. And through Joseph, the other tribes also give expression to their Israelite ancestry. And we find the lost 10 tribes amongst Western nations, amongst Western peoples. That is where the lost 10 tribes are. They are amongst those peoples, amongst the peoples of Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, France, Switzerland, Wales, England, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland. Also the offshoots of these peoples overseas in the USA, in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, in South Africa, and we are not saying that all the peoples in these regions are descended from Israelites, or that is the only place where Israelites are to be found. We are saying that that is where Israelites were concentrated especially more, and that where they became predominant and where they influenced the national characteristics of the nations amongst whom they dwelt, and that they are still there, and that they will return in the end times. And how this will come about, we do not know. We are still searching for the answers like everyone else, but we know what we know. We have a certain degree of knowledge, one could say, that has been revealed to us, that has come to us through studies. Also, we use the findings of other peoples along the same lines. We are merited to add to this, to amplify it, to clarify certain issues. And we are pushing the knowledge of this subject. We are working as much as we're able to have this knowledge, this awareness promoted, to have it deepened, to spread it more as much as possible. And we have written quite a few books on this subject, a few books. Our first book was this book, The Tribes. It's also probably our most successful book. The Tribes is now in its 4th edition, and on this present talk we will be concentrating on an appendix in this work concerning biblical proofs. This is the last talk in this series that we have given of briefly going through the different biblical proofs. We showed how the lost 10 tribes according to the Bible, we're concentrating on the Bible because everything else depends upon the Bible, and all the other evidence from history, from mythology, from linguistics, from every other field is only pertinent in the light of the Bible. But it does help. It is very important because it helps us understand the Bible, and it proves the Bible. Even though we are human beings, we need proof. And we also commanded, there's a commandment in the Bible you shall know this day, and you shall apply it to your heart, and you shall put it on your heart. This is, we are commanded to prove this issue, to make it known to ourselves, to become aware of it, and to make it a reality. And this is what we are doing. This is what has to be done. So the biblical proofs that we brought forward, that we showed concerning the lost 10 tribes, and this is not all of the biblical proofs that we have. These are just the most apparent ones, the ones that are easier for us to explain in a few words, and they are sufficient in themselves, at least to give you an inkling of what exists, and to, God willing, arouse your curiosity to go into the matter more deeply. And we showed that from the Bible. The Bible says, as concerning geography, that lost 10 tribes, it is prophesied lost 10 tribes will be at the geographical extremities of the continental masses, that is, at the ends of the earth. That they would be primarily in islands of the sea, but also on the coastlands. That they would be in salubrious climates, in places that are conducive to good health, that are fertile and relatively speaking healthy. Also, that they would be in islands, as we said, that would be in coastal areas, that would be to the north and to the west of the land of Israel, as well as having outposts in the southwest of the land of Sinim, meaning New Zealand and Australia. And this fits in with these peoples. And we also said that for proof to be pertinent, it also needs to apply to the whole of the ethnic continuum of the peoples concerned, and how these peoples are related to each other historically and ethnically. And so what applies to one applies to the other. We also said that they had to be associated with the Atlantic Ocean, or a good portion of them had to be associated with the Atlantic Ocean area, that is the expanse of sea stretching between Northern Europe, Western Europe, and North America. We also said that they had to be to the west of the land of Israel, as the Bible says, to the north and west of the land of Israel as well, that they would be in the best places, that would historically have been associated with fires in the Isles, such as Asian Celtic peoples were, that would be associated with Zarephath, which meant France and Britain and Northern Europe in general, as we find in Abijah chapter 1, verse 20, that there would be a pathway of megalithic monuments showing their pathways of migration in the past, that there would be many water cities and several oceans, and then we also had the symbols that they'll be associated with the lion and the unicorn, which are the symbols of Britain, the traditional symbols of Britain, that also a bald-headed eagle would be associated with the exiles, and that is a bald-headed eagle is a symbol of the USA. The USA is very important, and we showed that they would rule over other peoples, so there would be rulers of the sea, that there would be the policemen of the globe, according to prophecy. There would be seafarers. There would be the dominant world power, that they would defeat Edom, that is Germany and Japan and powers in Europe, that they would become a light to the Gentiles and uplifter of the pagan peoples, a civilizing influence in world affairs, as they have been on the whole. And we also said that there would be drinkers of alcohol, and that is spoken in denigration. They are referred to as drunkards, but nevertheless, this shows that they're not Muslims, that they are people of such culture, of drinkers, that they will be separated from Judah, that they will be not known to Judah, that they will worship a practice of religion similar to that of Christianity, that they will be associated with Goma, that is Western European non-Israelite peoples who historically were associated with these nations. They would be blessed exceedingly. They were to be blessed exceedingly. They will be very, very numerous, that they will be wealthy and have mineral resources at their command, and be dominant powers of the world's surplus in every field of human endeavour. Also that they will possess the gates of their enemies, that is all major strategic thoroughfares and pathways, such as the British did initially, and now the USA is following in their footsteps. And that is what we spoke of, as well as some other points. And we brought the relevant verses, and as we said, we are not discussing the relevant verses, we just bring them to your attention. We have discussed them in other talks, and we discuss them in the future in separate talks dedicated to these issues one by one. And to a great extent we've already done this, but we shall repeat it and show other new findings relevant to this whole issue. We're now about to discuss a few points that are pertinent to what we've been speaking of concerning behaviour and characteristics. Isaiah in chapter 43 and chapter 45 speaks of Cyrus. Cyrus, the king of Persia. Cyrus was the king of Persia. He was an emperor of Persia. He was well known to biblical readers, students. What we had the Assyrians who conquered the land of Israel, the northern land of Israel, and took all of the northern Israelites into exile. They took the 10 tribes into exile. The Israelite nation had divided into 2 different sections. There was the northern 10 tribes in the north, and Judah, that is the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and ultimately Levi, and representative minorities from the other tribes were in the south, and they were known as Judah collectively. They are the ancestors of the present-day Jews. In the north were the 10 tribes. The 10 tribes had gone in the ways of the Gentiles around them. They had adopted pagan practices. And they were conquered by the Assyrians and taken to exile in their places of exile. They forgot their ancestry. They'd already began to forget their ancestry before they were taken away even. So they forgot who they were. They were split up into different sections. But somehow or other they all moved in the same directions, in bits and pieces, in different groups. And in the west they recoalesced, they reconverged and re-emerged. And elements from the same tribes tended to come together in the western areas. These are the lost 10 tribes spoken of in biblical prophecy. Meanwhile, Judah remained in the south. Judah was not exiled by Assyria. After Assyria, there came Babylon. Babylon conquered Judah and took the people of Judah into exile. After 70 years approximately, Babylon was conquered by the Persians. And the ruler of Persia, known as Cyrus, allowed the Jews to return and rebuild their land. And they did so. Most of them decided the areas of diaspora, but a small minority, a small portion of the people did return. Under Ezra and Nehemiah and Shealtiel and others, they did begin to rebuild the land, to restructure their previous identity, and they also rebuilt the temple. And over time they grew and multiplied, and more people from outside, more and more Jews from outside returned to the land. Also they increased and multiplied through natural increase, and they became the land of Judah, the people of Judah known to history. And the Bible speaks about Cyrus. Isaiah speaks about Cyrus. He mentions him by name, even though he lived more than 100 years beforehand. He speaks of him, he prophesies concerning him. And the prophecies in Isaiah 43 and 45 concerning Cyrus fit what Cyrus did. Cyrus, he conquered a great deal, many lands. He conquered what is now all of Egypt. He conquered Sudan. His empire reached up into the borders of India and into Central Asia and into what is now Turkey. And he had quite a large empire for his time and period, one of the most important ones in history, the most powerful kingdom in his time. And he was also a liberator of other peoples. He liberated the peoples who had been oppressed, who had been put down by the Assyrians and Babylonians. He was relatively liberal. And amongst other things, he enabled the Jews to go back and rebuild Jerusalem and to rebuild the temple. And the Bible speaks of him, as we have said. But the prophecies concerning Cyrus, when we look into them deeply in light of the commentators and light of the Hebrew original text, we see that the prophecies concerning Cyrus have a double intention, that as well as Cyrus, they are predicting the future behavior of the lost 10 tribes in their places of exile when they help the Jews return to their land. And we have shown this. And we will go into this in detail elsewhere. We just wanted to point out that these proofs exist, that this study exists, and it has shown what will happen in the end times or in our own times. And this too is an additional proof concerning the identity of the lost 10 tribes. Peoples we identify as having a good portion of lost 10 tribes amongst them, did help the Jews return. We had the British, and after the British to some degree the French, and after them the USA. They have helped the Jews return to their land, and this was prophesied concerning the lost 10 tribes. In these prophecies, where on a superficial reading it is pertaining to Cyrus, a deeper reading we see that it really reflects Joseph in the end times. And another point that it mentions in mentioning this, it also describes how Joseph will have been, or the factors that would have led up to Joseph being able to do this. And it describes Joseph as controlling the passage to India, controlling the gateways of Egypt, that is the Suez Canal, of ruling over Egypt, of ruling over the Sudan, of ruling over India. And this is also a proof that these peoples are from the lost 10 tribes, and this is what the British did, and after them the USA complemented their activities. We also have the possibility that the rulers of these nations descend from the sons of David. This is a tradition that some of them have. There are indications that there's something to this. The Western countries are ruled by monarchs or interrelated and possibly do descend from David. Also the presidents and the prime ministers and the political leaders and the national figures may also have been descended from David. We have a prophecy in Jeremiah 33 concerning the sons of David being exceedingly numerous. Not all of them are going to be the future Messiah. David is going to have tens of thousands or perhaps hundreds of thousands of descendants, and only one of them will be the future Messiah. So just because someone thinks or believes that they might be descended from David, well, there might be some truth in it. It doesn't necessarily mean anything beyond that. But incidentally, there could be some truth in this possibility that the rulers are descended from David to a certain degree, because it was promised that David will always have rulers from David, that would always emerge rulers for Israel, that David would be exceedingly numerous, and also that Levi would always minister to God Almighty. And we have found Levi, in a different study, we have found Levi to have been prominent amongst the Jewish rabbis. The lawgivers of the Jewish nation have been overwhelmingly from the tribe of Levi. And the Jews themselves have noticed that there have been studies concerning it. Levi means the people from the tribe of Levi, and also the Cohens, who are also from the tribe of Levi. Together they have given the Jewish nation a good portion, probably an overwhelming majority of all of their famous rabbis and lawgivers. And as it has been done for Levi, so too we may infer that it has been done for David. So this also ties in and is worth considering. We mentioned that the very names of these people sometimes have Israelite characteristics or indications concerning Israelite characteristics. For instance, Manasseh, the son of Joseph. Manasseh has a name meaning representative democracy, responsible representation of the rulership. This is the very meaning of the name Manasseh, according to Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, according to the Hebrew, as we have explained. And we find that Manasseh became dominant in the USA, and this is a national characteristic of the USA. We also find that Ephraim became dominant in the British Isles. And the very name Ephraim and the characteristics of Ephraim was that of aristocracy. And aristocracy, the ruler of lords, of counts, of nobles, still exists in Britain, and is the only country in the world where it exists, and it coexists together with democracy and the rights of every citizen. Other points concerning national characteristics, for instance, concerning Zebulun, it was prophesied that Zebulun should dwell on the shores of the sea. We find that Zebulun Goy, that is the people of Zebulun. Nation records such as those of Ptolemy, Zebulun Goy was, in Hebrew means Goy, people of Zebulun, dwelt where the present day Netherlands is. Within the Netherlands there's a good portion of people descended from Zebulun. Netherlands has characteristics of Zebulun. That is also where most of the people live below sea level, literally on the seashores, only country in the world where this applies. So this too is a proof. So too we find a dominance of people from Reuben in France. Reuben was known for having romantic proclivities, and the French are, according to reputation, this way inclined. And this is where Reuben is to be found. And so too with all of the other peoples. We have the names of different tribes and different tribal clans. And we find these clans' names repeated in tribal groups that founded or helped found the nations we are speaking about. And we will go into this in more depth and more detail in later talks. May the Lord God of yourself bless you. Thank you.